Greetings and salutations, folks. My name is Nick, and welcome back to Castlevania Symphony of the Night, where we're not going to finish this game today. We've got a lot of ground to cover if we expect to actually succeed. There's not, like, the story has stopped progressing, as I had mentioned before. But we still have the entire castle to explore once again. And even though I have a weapon that will destroy everything in its path, like, I still need to cover the ground itself. Which, I'm going to try to do my best to do two things today. One, have a coherent discussion. And two, bite off as much of the upside down map as I can in the process. The coherent discussion that I want to talk about today is like the idea of video games becoming a victim of their own success. And we'll get to that in a bit, maybe. Or we'll get to that now. Do I have anything else to say about the upside down castle? Like, it's an interesting idea to extend the game, and also to kind of give, like, a secret reward. But then again, like, the regular ending is so, I would say, purposely unfulfilling, that it's like, I feel as though the developers really did expect everybody to proceed and get everything, because if you didn't, like, you would be shorting yourself out of the experience. But anyway, okay, so let's talk about video games being a victim of their own success. And I want to say, like, this has nothing to do with video games that are run into the ground or changed by their publishers. The ones being run into the ground for being successful. Most notably, you can see Activision did quite a lot of that. See Tony Hawk, Guitar Hero, Call of Duty. Like, the latest Call of Duty is one of the perfect examples of a video game that was just forced out because the publisher wanted something in November to hit sales, and they wanted something with a notable name to do it in, and they figured Call of Duty was going to be it. And it didn't matter how bad the campaign was, because they feel that the focus is the multiplayer, which it is. The money is the multiplayer, which it is. People aren't spending money to get battle passes to modify their single-player experience. They're spending money to get battle passes to adjust their multiplayer experience, if they're doing the whole battle pass thing. And that's why you see Treyarch in such a position that they had to force out 2 Call of Duty games 2 years in a row, which historically has never been a good sign. Or actually, I should hold on to the pocket watch. Has never been a good sign for... Ooh, this one is not telling me mist could pass. The tutorial stops once you enter the upside down. Historically, it's not been a very good means of progress for any franchise. The Call of Duty franchise specifically. When you had Infinity Ward making the same Call of Duty like 2 years in a row. The second year turned into crap. I think multiple times, actually. This has happened multiple times in the franchise, and Activision still... I swear, I'm going to get to Castlevania eventually. I'm not just going to talk about Call of Duty this entire time, but I feel like these big publishers, like, in theory, like, they should learn that their greed for more money stands in the way of artistic merit, achievement, and just things that gamers actually want. But yeah, Activision is known for it. Ubisoft is known for it. EA is known for it. A lot of these big companies. But yeah, that's not what I'm talking about, video games being a victim of their own success. I'm referring to something like Warcraft 4. There will probably never be a Warcraft 4. Or a Half-Life 3. Like, their companies have become so successful doing other things that they have no reason to return to those franchises as they were originally created. Think about Far Cry. The original Far Cry was kind of like an open world, but fairly like Far Cry 1 and Crysis. Shmoo. You can't get me that easily. But yeah, Far Cry 1 and Crysis 1 are a little bit more in common because both of these games are more linear in approach that give you kind of a little bit like a wider berth. Not necessarily open world per se, but open enough that like you can have some means of deciding your own approach to bad guys and bad guys situations. Crysis kind of maintained its formula from Crysis 1 through Crysis 3, whereas Far Cry 1 ditched the formula after the original game. It swapped over to a complete open world, which had become like the expected son of a bitch. There's a big empty spot on the map. That's fine. That's fine. I'll worry about... I said I wasn't going to worry about filling in every single point in the map. And the library is easy to access. I can get that later if I really feel the need to. But let us carry on. Yeah, so, but Far Cry, when you go from Far Cry 1 to Far Cry 2, the formula has changed. Far Cry 2 to Far Cry 3, the formula changes even further. But like with Castlevania, see, finally I'm talking to Castlevania again. Like, Symphony of the Night came out at a very specific time in Castlevania's life, where Castlevania was being pulled in two directions. But I'm right here. Okay, I'm going to cut back here. I'm just going to fill in that map. All right, so now I'm back here again. We filled in that one spot in the map. So when Symphony of the Night came out, this was a time in which the 2D side-scroller had started to fade in favor of the 3D side-scroller. I'd actually have to look up when Mario 64 came out in relation to Symphony of the Night. Do I want to do research on the clock? Do I want to do research while recording? Like, unfortunately, or fortunately, my phone is a little bit far away. I want to say Mario 64 was 96? Let me know in the comments which came out first, Symphony of the Night or Mario 64. Either way, the 3D platforming was the new phase. I want to say Mario 64 came out before... son of... I'm going to have to actually look at my phone. Hold on. This is very, very riveting. Let's plays. Nothing works better for a Let's Play than stopping the gameplay just so you can look up dates. Okay, so Symphony of the Night was 1997. I think Mario 64 was 96. Yes, it was 96. And then Castlevania 64... which actually its name isn't Castlevania 64, it's just become colloquially known as Castlevania 64. Was 99. Okay. So yeah, the Mario 64 had proven that the 3D platformer can be done well and be incredibly successful. And there are so many franchises that tried to do what Mario 64 did. Or some variant thereof. But alas, Bubsy simply was not good enough to stand shoulder to shoulder with the king of plumbing. I have never actually played Bubsy 3D, so I can't really say much in regards to the quality of that franchise. But that's just one example of a lot of 3D platforms that did not do well in comparison. Castlevania 64 and I want to say the other Castlevania on the Nintendo 64 was also very poorly received. Whereas Symphony of the Night was a huge success. It didn't... I feel like Konami still felt as though they weren't really prepared to do a 2D game on a main system. Like, the 2D approach had simply fallen so out of favor that, like, a 2D game on, like, a PS2 or in a GameCube would have just seemed out of place. Especially, like, you look at that era of gaming as we go from the as we leave the Nintendo 64 and we go on to the Xbox and the PS2, the GameCube, we go to the oh no, this is a dangerous place. See that guy right below me? They will stab me with their spikes. We hate them. We hate them. They will take what is precious to us, which is our feet. We need them for walking. Also, they do a lot of damage, these spike traps. So yeah, the entire idea of like a 2D platformer, like Beautiful Joe, stood out for its time because it was doing something that a lot of developers had kind of shied away from. Bringing it into like a 3D space, but still with a 2D classic appeal. And unfortunately, I don't think Beautiful Joe did well. Like, it did well enough, I guess, for them to pay for a sequel. Ooh, is this? Nope, this is just a blue door that led to the switch that opened up the sewer system. So yeah, I feel like I've beaten this point into the ground as well as any Activision developer would treat their own video game. Ultimately, 2D had fallen out of favor on main systems, but like they had carried on the 2D approach with the handhelds. You see the Metroidvania style of Castlevania still going on. Let's actually go up, you know? we can head up through the Colosseum, circle our way, or not the Colosseum, up through the underground and circle our way around towards the beginning of the game. Like, you've got Castlevania, Circle of the Moon, Area of Sorrow, Dawn of Sorrow on the Game Boy Advance, and then you'd go on to like this is the biggest problem of that whole era of Castlevania games, is their titles are largely bullshit. Like, what is the dissonance that is? What is the harmony and the dissonance that is occurring in this game? What does that have to do with this particular plot? Absolutely nothing. And then there was, 3 of them on the DS, 3 of them on the Game Boy Advance. And then... and that was it for a while. For the handhelds. Then they went over to Mercury Steam, and Mercury Steam retried the attempts at 3D Castlevania by making a God of War game that also borrowed from Portal. But, their game... what was the subtitle for their Castlevania? It's been so long. Shadow of something? Mirror of Fate was the one that they made on 3DS. But Mirror of Fate, and then... see what I was saying about having a coherent discussion? I feel like that has gone out the window. My apologies. But let's backtrack. Like, Castlevania has always kind of been a platformer. Like a classic platformer. Not necessarily in the same house as Mega Man, but definitely in the same neighborhood. Like, you'd have a lot of the similar design decisions. And I would say that a lot of the design decisions of the original Castlevania games, the ones that I'm most familiar with myself would be Castlevanias 1, 3, and Super Castlevania. I still really haven't played Rondo of Blood, or the Genesis one. Like, I think I've, played minutes worth of the Genesis one. Or the GameCube, or the Game Boy ones. But largely, you still have a lot of that classic Castlevania DNA. Which, I need that pocket watch. Where you have your whip-cracking, pit-jumping, boss-fighting Belmont, usually. Not the Genesis one. It's somebody else. I forget the name of that character, but... you would lead that person on stage after stage. Symphony of the Night changed that formula. It gave you a little bit of a teaser of what it's like to play as a Belmont on a PS1 Sega Saturn system. But then the rest of the game is very different. It's a very different experience from the classic Castlevania approach. Like, Alucard is more maneuverable than Belmont. His weapons feel different to use simply because he doesn't use a whip. You don't have to worry about pits, ever. Okay, so this part, I just want to show off one thing. Note how... this is actually terrible. Here we go. Note how I can't actually uncover that bit of map. Like, there are sections which become very difficult when I don't have space at the top in order to fully Yeah, like right over there. Can I uncover this bit of map there? No. Apparently the best way to do that is to turn into a dog. And that allows Alucard to get a little bit closer to the top. Yep. To uncover that little piece of map, that little fragment to get you closer to the 196% that the game wants to give you that perfect, true ending. And also, it seems like when you transform into a dog, you kind of like, you don't just float, you float up a little bit to gain you a little bit more map percentage in the process. But yeah, the experience of playing Symphony of the Night is very different from the experience of playing the classic Castlevania approach. It could be one of the reasons why I've never really finished Rondo of Blood, is because, as it turns out, this is the version of Castlevania I prefer. But because of that, like, the odds that we're going to get a Castlevania game that feels like a classic Castlevania game is going to be very rare from, well, especially since Konami decided to go nuts for a little while and decided they, they didn't want to be a video game developing, publishing company. In fact, you know what? They're gonna get rid of their best talent. For reasons. Because they're done with this. And then now they're like, you know what? We changed our mind. This IP we're sitting on actually makes money. Which, one day I hope Squaresoft regrets their decision for selling off all of their IP for AI money. But, that's a different conversation entirely. But yeah. So, like, Symphony of the Night comes out. And it is it is very successful. I don't know how wildly successful it is. I would have to look that up. And I feel as though I've done Force of Echo. Now I can hit things with my bat sonar, and they will take damage. But Symphony of the Night was a very successful game for them. Then came Castlevania 64. And it was not. And then there was the subsequent Nintendo 64 game featuring Castlevania, which was also not successful. The bet on 3D, unfortunately, taught the wrong lessons. It was less about, hey, let's figure out what the customers want, and more about, well, I guess that didn't work. We'll have to try the same thing again and hope to be more successful. Actually, let's take that back. For the 3D route. But they looked at Symphony of the Night and they're like, okay, I guess people want that experience. And only that experience. And so that's how we only get, oh, hello, it's my doppelganger again. And he's dead. You know what? Let's interrupt this discussion that I'm rambling through to talk about the chrysogram, the weapons that I'm using. Because I feel as though I'm being a little bit unfair on my enemies, maybe a little bit unfair on the experience. Like, the challenge has kind of, whatever challenge this game has in regards to the combat is more or less out the window. There are certain platforming aspects that can still be difficult, especially when you have those spike traps. just a few of those spike trap hits, and then suddenly you're down a good half of your life. Oh, the Dark Blade. I'm sure that's going to be really useful in comparison to what I'm using now. The Dark Blade. Sword forged by elves. It is lower attack. And significantly slower. So I could use the Dark Blade if I really wanted to give myself a challenge again. But then I suppose it would be a little bit like, I have a friend of mine who back in college, this is probably going to date myself, but that's okay. I realize I am so old. So horribly, horribly old. He played a lot of Thief, the original Thief on the PC. Thief the Dark Project. He was good at Thief the Dark Project. He had beat it several times. And in order to give himself more of a challenge, he just lowered the brightness settings. Just kept lowering the brightness settings until he could barely see the game. In other words, he made the game harder for himself. Now you can see this as like an early approach to something that you see a lot of in streaming. Like you'll see people doing like a level 1 run of a Souls game. They'll play through the entire game at just level 1. No hits. No experience gained at all. By the time they get to the final boss, they're doing so little damage that each hit is an imperceptible swipe. And yet, due to their expertise at the game, they somehow survive. By the way, these balloon pods are just kind of a pain in the butt to fight because they just pop out into like bigger explosions of tiny balloon pods, and then you have to shoot out those balloon pods, and it's like, I mean, although I suppose with the Chrysogram, it probably would go really fast. But yeah, I have the option to make the game harder for myself, if I so choose. I'm just never really the one to choose that. I admit, I enjoy the path of least resistance. To a point, I suppose. Like, I don't want the experience to be boring for me. And for you. But mostly for me. Thusly, my highly incoherent discussion on the success of video games. Well, yeah, that's something I think about in regards to the Chrysogram. Am I cheating myself out of the experience by making the game too easy, or am I doing as intended because it's an item that is available to me? Although I suppose the developers weren't like, we're going to put this secret weapon specifically so that you could grind to get it. I'm sure that was not in their plan. Oh no, he has a rock. Okay, so there is a little bit of a difficulty. I'm not going to be able to reach the top of the water in these sections. Now, yet, there's eventually going to be an item that I can pick up that allows me to launch myself directly up. I forget exactly where that is. But, you know, maybe we'll come back to it, maybe we won't. We'll find out. For now, let us proceed Ooh, actually, the way I'm going is going to be taking me directly to the most difficult boss in the game. Which... is still, even with the chrysogram, it still takes a while because that boss just has so much health. Like, he is a weapon sponge. So, you know, maybe that's not a bad thing to go directly towards him while I am lower leveled, or at the very least I don't have anything that will instantly destroy him. Though I don't think he is one that is instantly destroyed. Why, hello! And by the way, I didn't bother to consider that I'm fighting these enemies who were former bosses. Oh, I forgot about death. My apologies.
So, you've made it this far. In the name of your father, cease this foolishness.
Not while there's a breath in my body.
Then for the master, I'll feast on your soul this night.
I had said that there's only one conversation, and that's with Dracula. But actually, there's Death, who is immediately destroyed by the chrysogram. The Eye of Vlad. Luck plus 10. Amazing. Fantastic. Alucard, are you feeling lucky? Oh.
This switch hasn't been pressed yet.
This switch hasn't been pressed yet. See what I mean in regards to the chrysogram being a little bit too OP? And to believe there was a time in which I played through the game without its benefits. Without the knowledge that it even existed. That I fought the enemies on their own ground. Slowly whittling away Death's health one strike at a time. And now he just gets vaporized in a matter of seconds. Both phases, really. Oh, hold on. I need to put on the cat eye circlet so I can restore health from cats. Which really, I mean, it's just like life, really. You normally restore health from cats in real life. I guess unless you're allergic, then I'm sorry. The cats aren't sorry. They're usually never sorry. Wait, hold on. Yeah, let's go back down. I want to say these paths to the right and left lead to dead ends. I think the one on the left led to a teleporter, but it has been a while. It's Alucard's sword. You know it's Alucard's sword because it says his name on the handle. And it's Mother's family heirloom. It always kind of bugs me about Alucard's sword that there's like a sound effect after the swing. Like you have the swing sound effect. And then there's that sound effect after it, like... What is that second sound effect? Like, is it like him returning the blade to its proper position for the next swing? That is a mystery I have never solved. But alas, it is simply too weak against the omnipotence of the chrysogram. And there is, in fact, a teleporter. So now I can teleport away from this hole in the ground. Actually, I'm upside down, so it's a hole in the sky, really. Where did I leave off in my incoherent rambling in regards to the success of Symphony of the Night? So yeah, the 2D platformer had kind of fallen out of style, but Symphony of the Night was simply too successful. Whereas Castlevania on the main platforms was too unsuccessful. To the point in which, like the typical Castlevania platformer, unfortunately fell out of favor. You can see that in a lot of classic Castlevania, or not Castlevania, platformers that didn't succeed in the merger to 3D. Like you look at Mega Man, especially. Its 3D games weren't quite as successful as its 2D games, whereas its 2D games found a new home on handhelds. Same goes with Castlevania. But in the form of Symphony of the Night, whereas Mega Man was retaining its classic form. I want to say with Mega Man Z, I admit I didn't really follow the workings of Mega Man after, heck, Mega Man 7, let alone into Mega Man X territory. But yeah, Symphony of the Night was just so successful that, like, the original Castlevania experience largely died out of its franchise because of it. And look, there's a witch. She'll shoot relatively powerful shots at me, throw skulls. But her cats, she'll throw cats. And I will be instantly healed by those cats. Now then, if I didn't have that circlet, like, I'd be taking a lot of damage from these adorable witches. Like, and I feel like Symphony of the Night has a lot of those things, where you'll have very specific items that are incredibly useful for one room in the game. Like, I have an item that will cause me to heal from poison damage. I don't remember, like, there's like 2 or 3 enemies that deal poison damage. And that's it. Get back here. Ah, sorry, Kitty. Is there anything up here? No, there's nothing up here. But map coverage. So there's that. Oh, yeah. And then the spike room, which I no longer have to do the bat echo, but I still need to deal with the spikes. I guess they figured that they didn't want to have to... Actually, let's just get rid of a lot of these extra spikes. I forget if the spikes come back when you return, or if they stay removed. Like, I've very, very rarely have had to go back over the same territory. But we're just gonna carry on. We don't need to fight these witches. They're just minding their business, throwing cats at us. And their cats don't need, like, they're not even a threat. Their cats are just there to heal us. Like, they can stay floating on their broomsticks for some reason. doing whatever it is they do down in these catacombs. As for what the heck I was talking about, and where I was going with it, I think I kind of hit all the points I wanted to make. Symphony of the Night was successful. Old Castlevania don't make anymore. Like, the closest you have to that is, like, you have more modern fan-made games. And not necessarily, like, fan-made as in, like, fan-created with official, like, licensed sprites. I'm thinking more like developers who are clearly very, very inspired by. So, like, you look at something like Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight is very... Oh, and speaking of, the spikes are still missing, despite the fact that I have left and returned to the room. Shovel Knight, I would say, is more inspired by Mega Man than Castlevania. But like I've said before, like, Castlevania and Mega Man are kind of neighbors. Ooh, that's pretty cool. If only that villain lived long enough normally to use such an attack, I would probably see it more often. There was, not Bloodstained. Bloodstained is more of Symphony of the Night. But there's the Bloodstained spin-off that's more classic Castlevania. More specifically taking off of like things like Castlevania 3 with its multiple characters, or Rondo of Blood. Again, with its multiple characters. And I feel like that's probably like the only way you'd get new games that pick up off of that style, because I feel like we've reached a point in which these publishers don't maybe not necessarily see any monetary value going back to a lot of these styles of gameplay that were already outdated by themselves, that were already outpaced by their own franchise's evolution. Let's see, we want to replace something with the Necklace of J. Shall we be shorter for some extra defense? We don't need to discreetly enhance our height for some more defense. Or, we can have some more defense instead. Actually, hold on. Let's also equip the Lightning Mail. It's significantly weaker than the Walk Armor, but it's good against lightning attacks, and that's going to be something that the next boss uses more often. And just in case we happen to get hit by it, which we might, because this fight is going to take a while. But yeah, like, I admit, like, I don't even know if I would personally want the classic Castlevania 1, 3, or 4 experience. Like, Symphony of the Night is, like I had said previously, one of my favorite games of all time. So much so that I've gone on and I've played through the Circle of the Moon multiple times. Harmony of Dissonance, Area of Sorrow, Dawn of Sorrow, Order of Ecclesia, Portrait of Ruin. Finally, there we go. There's the 6 games. Maybe the last 2 weren't in order. I think it might be Portrait of Ruin and then Order of Ecclesia. But those are the Castlevania games I admit I am the bigger fan of. So as somebody who's saying like, oh, they're not making the classic Castlevania games anymore, I'm not even the crowd that's preaching. Hold on. See what I mean? Like, these other bosses, like the doppelganger is dead in just like one wave of those hits. And this guy... Now imagine if you just had like the regular swipe. Like every hit taking just one swing at a time. Like this boss fight has, for the longest time for me, been problematic because of how long it takes. And that's why I also think that I haven't looked at the stats, but this guy might have more health than Dracula himself. That was a great attempt there, Demon. I appreciate it, and you were really cool when you did it. Yeah, stab him once. For 4 damage. Also, it says rest in peace very awkwardly at the bottom there for some reason. Alright, he's been beaten. Oh yeah, we probably should pick up whatever this... Okay, I was almost going to start flying away to the next area. But that would have been no good. I would have left behind that life up. And then I forget what you get over here. You know, I should probably just stop saying things like that because I forget the order of items throughout this entire upside down area. Ruby circlets. Restores HP by fire damage. Who does fire damage? Also, is this the smog ability? Yes. So with this, with the gas cloud, I can now turn into mist and do damage. Which is a really good ability. Like, maybe also, like, too good, especially when you combine it with the chrysogram. Alright, where do I want to go? I'm thinking of using... See, here's the thing. I could use my library card to get out of here. But it'll take me to the right side up library. And then I'll still need to go back into the upside down. You know, actually, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to use it to go into the right side up library and see that spot where the hallway goes to the right on the bottom of the map. I think we're going to cut to that. So cutting to that. All right, so now we have made our way back to this hallway, which leads over to the west side of the right side up castle, which is now the east side of the upside down castle. It is the longest stretch in the game of not much things going on. The upside down castle cranks it up a little bit because of just how crowded it is. There's just a lot of stuff going in, a lot of enemies that are kind of sort of... They're not necessarily teleporting in. Yeah, they're teleporting in, never mind. They're pretty much just teleporting in. They're not there, and then suddenly an arrow appears out of nowhere. And then you've got a bad guy. Ready to kill you. Or should I go into the Colosseum? No, wait. Does this go into the Colosseum? No, this goes to a save point. Yes, we are at the far end of the east, or sorry, the west, way up. There's not too much more going on that's terribly exciting. I mean, especially, I suppose, if I treat my foes like that. Avoid Curse! Finally, a really interesting upgrade. But no, that was Medusa. Medusa can petrify you, as Medusa is well known for. If she lasts more than, like, a few seconds, I suppose. She can turn you into stone. I would say, like, Beelzebub is probably the most interesting of the bosses that remain. Because, like, what's his name from the Catacombs, he actually does take a few more hits. And I think what also makes him a little bit tougher is that he's harder to hit. Like, he's kind of hanging off of the ceiling, and you have to make your way over to him, which limits exactly how many hits you can get on any specific jump. Though the mist attack is very useful. Like the ability... Am I in the... No, I'm not in the far side. Or am I? Trying to remember. Oh yeah, no, this is the area that goes to the spike room. And now we have this version of it. Obviously, it's not going to have any big game-changing secrets this time around. No sideways castle waits for us. But there is a Cloak of Twilight. A black cape for vampires. Look how ready he is. He is ready to pose. Actually, that is a pretty epic area to pose. He's got his demon buddy with his spear, who's been leveling up. That's something I haven't really been talking about, is the fact that these familiars do level up alongside you. As you can see, the demon's been with me the most. The bat hung around for quite a while, despite being useless. Like, even more useless than the demon, with his 4 hit points stabbing. Now, this does use a lot of magic. That is the disadvantage of using mist as a means of attacking. But I find it as a useful way of dealing with... there's one more spot that I tend to grind, and that's going to be right at the center of the castle. There's a couple of knights that guard the path towards Dracula. And they give you a lot of experience. Damn it, flying zombie. And they can be a little bit dangerous. But it's a lot easier to deal with them when they cannot hit you at all. Yeah, Medusas are not quite as threatening while you are mist. Though, like I said, it does use up... It burns through your magic pretty quickly. Like... But I believe there's a save game here, so like we can just hop in and restore our magic whenever we want. There's also a boss fight to the right, but it's not quite the interesting boss fight. It is not Beelzebub, it's somebody else. Resists fire, lightning, and ice. The perfect storm of resistances. But yeah, Beelzebub is interesting. Dracula is cool. But otherwise, a large amount of what's left in the game is just wandering through the castle a second time around. And I admit, it's not the most exciting. Am I making it less exciting by turning into Smog? The answer is maybe yes. In which case, I do apologize. But what was I saying about the path of least resistance? It is not necessarily the most interesting path. But in this case, it is one of the more direct paths. Yep, there it goes. Karasuman. Yet another victim of the chrysogram. But either way, the only thing we have left to do is to collect the remaining relic of Dracula, which is more of like it's more of a callback to classic Castlevania, like especially Castlevania 2, where you had to assemble the pieces of Dracula. Resurrect him, and then defeat, which is kind of an interesting plot point considering, like, the whole controversy here is Richter is trying to... Oh, he got poisoned. This guy poisons me. And he's dead. Also, what does poison do? I'm not losing health. And I have the Rib of Vlad, which makes my constitution go up by 10. Such exciting upgrades. I'm trying to remember where secret rooms are in relation to where they were in the Upside Down. There's the one from the Colosseum, and I think there might be one more in that hallway space above me that I passed by and forgot about. But yeah, now that we have all of the relics, I forgot that he drops it from this guy. All of the relics of Dracula, once we get to that center room, it'll unlock the path to Dracula himself, and we could just finish the game. We won't get the... There's 2 endings from this point onward. We fight Dracula, and the main difference between the 2 endings is in one version, Maria goes with Richter. Richter's like, thank God that's over. And they go off together to do whatever it is they do with their remaining time on this world. Whereas Alucard bids himself farewell, never to be seen again, presumably. And the alternate ending, if you decide to acquire it, did you hear him? He is just simply too cool. Like, in the alternate ending, the ultra best mega true ending, you know, let's just do this for a second. Maria is like, I can't just let Alucard leave like that. I need to tuck some sense into him. And Richter's like, go try to comfort his tormented soul, whatever that means. And she runs off to chase Alucard. That is the main difference. We never really find out what happens next either way. Like, Castlevania is kind of like an odd franchise for storytelling purposes, in that, like, every 100 years, Dracula returns. And the way this game treats the storyline is it almost feels as though this game is like a canon ending for Dracula. Like, Dracula is finally dead at the end of the game. But as you can see from future games, that is not the case. He comes back century after century, ready to do battle against the forces of good again. But with, like, a battle that's specifically made to a point in which, like, you can't have returning characters. You can only have maybe, like, returning family members. That means, like, even if, like the vampire killer whip is that consistent item from game to game, from Castlevania 1, 2, and 3, Super Castlevania 4, I don't remember if you use the vampire killer in... I don't know if that's used in the Genesis one, but I know that the vampire killer is the main weapon for Circle of the Moon, and there's this... Although I hear Circle of the Moon is supposedly not canon either, but that's a whole different discussion. But the point I'm trying to make is that, like, you have this franchise that has built itself out of the idea that you don't have returning characters. Though I suppose Alucard is a vampire. In theory, we should see him again eventually. He'll outlive all of the Belmonts. But he drops out of the series entirely. Like, I don't remember him coming back at all in any of the Game Boy Advance or DS releases. Let me know if I'm wrong about that one. It's been a while. So, like, even though, like, the story kind of ends with a little bit of drama in regards to what is going to be happening to these characters after the destruction of Dracula, like, there's no follow-up to it. And that is only a certain amount of map percentage hints at a little bit of difference. Okay, so now we can, if we so desired, fight Dracula. We could end the game right here. And now. Part of me is half tempted to do so. But then we also have not seen the likes of Beelzebub, who is somewhere off to the right. And there's still a decent amount of castle to explore. I was not expecting to finish this game tonight. I was expecting this to take at least one more video. That said, what I can do is I can go off to the left, show off these guardians. Look at his move set. So many moves. So many, and the thing that makes him a little bit trickier is he actually has a shield. But like, let's see, our experience. Oh, we only have 760 to go. So let's remember the full experience number: 169, 240. Because we're going to be leveling up with this kill regardless. And by the way, yes, this is how I grind for experience with these knights, these guardians. 169, 240. We've gained 4,000, just short of 4,000 experience. We need 6,185 experience to level up. Which means, in order to level up again, we only need to defeat 2 more guardians. Like, they do drop a lot of experience. But yeah, those spike traps can be dangerous. The Nova skeletons can be dangerous. Like, just because the Chrysogram is a fantastic weapon does not necessarily mean that you, as Alucard, are invulnerable. You are still highly vulnerable. Alright, so we've cleared out that space. Let's go back to Dracula's room, confront Dracula, unlock ending 1. Unfortunately, that means I would have to commit to ending 2. Ah. And I had said before, I was not intending to go for the ultra-perfect Mega Sonic ending. See? And the Chrysogram doesn't even really do that much damage against them. But also, like, their repeated shields just slows down regular fighting against them. Whereas I could just turn into mist and smog them to death. It is not the most exciting way to deal with them, but it works. You know, I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to... I'm going to avoid committing to any specific ending. I'm just going to go up here, poke around, fill in map. Only as much map as I'm able to. Without starting the boss fight. So I can't go there. Because otherwise I will start the boss fight. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to go right towards Beelzebub and fight him because he looks cool. And then next time, we are going to do as much of the rest of the map as we can. Go fight Dracula, and the ending that we get is the ending that we get. That way I don't have to feel as though I'm committed to showing off all endings. This game has been out since 1990... I said this number earlier today. 1997? Yes. Since 1997. There are plenty of YouTube videos that already show all endings. But how many YouTube videos out there have some guy incoherently rambling about the values of the video game industry while playing Castlevania Symphony of the Night? At least 73. Oh, Demon is doing his best. He's getting like one hit in every like 10 seconds or so. That's why Demon Buddy is the best. Like, Bat barely even recognized. Ah. This guy takes a lot of hits. Alright, I'm trying to remember what is the nice and easy path to get to Beelzebub. Because he's going to be in the same room that the first boss was in. No. Okay, I think we are heading on a good path to get to him. This area is kind of annoying because now you've got all of these hidden enemies. The demon can see them. The bitter fly. Like, this area has invisible enemies that sometimes appear, and then also it has specific enemies that, like, latch onto you and then just make you attack in that one specific direction. Both are annoying for their own very specific reasons. Actually, I don't even need the pocket watch anymore. I've already unlocked that. And I'm trying to remember where I am in relations to things. Okay, now I got it. There's this, like, in the right side up version, there was a bloody zombie up here, and then it would circle around back towards the beginning. But if we want to fight Beelzebub, he's going to be to the right. Fantastic. And look at him! He's just this corpse surrounded by flies. Giant flies. Each individual part of his body. Oh. Needs to be destroyed. which makes it a little bit of a tougher boss because, like, it's relatively harder to reach. Yeah, I have something that can heal me if I have poison. I think. I mean, he's cool looking, but he's dead. Although he can be a lot more difficult depending on when you actually confront him. Like, if I had chosen to go to the right instead of to the left when I entered the Upside Down. The Ring of Arcana. Increases rare item appearance. Yeah, sure, why not? We can replace the Necklace of Jay with the Moonstone. So yeah, if I decided to go right instead of left, right, I would say is more difficult. Especially if I wanted to carry on with that process through the west staircase of the right side up castle. Like, then it becomes kind of an ordeal, especially when you just freshly arrive into the Upside Down. But for now, I'm going to save my game here. We'll carry on next time from where we left off and finish the fight one way or the other. For now, though, got any suggestions for something to play next? Leave them down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have yourselves a good night.